Welcome to tonight's Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Melissa Melton, and here's what we have coming up for you on this January 31st, 2013 edition.
Tonight, high military alert across the Middle East after an Israeli attack inside Syria. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Forces are deployed to Jordan, and the Russian fleet in the Mediterranean is also on high alert. Then, a look at the mainstream media's continuing campaign to deceive the public and gut the Second Amendment. That's up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
We begin this evening with a very important development as high military alert is across the Middle East following an Israeli attack inside Syria. Syria has now moved troops to the Israel-occupied Golan Heights. The Lebanese army has reinforced its southern outposts, and Jordan has positioned troops on the Jordan River border with Israel. The Russian fleet in the Mediterranean is also on high alert. U.S. forces are now stationed in Turkey, and special forces have also been deployed. And American, German, and Dutch Patriot missile units are on the Turkish border, also on high preparedness. And basically, this Israeli attack is a desperate bid to save this failed Syria campaign. As Tony Cartalucci points out at Infowars.com, Israel has now conducted airstrikes inside Syria based on suspicions of chemical weapons transfers. And Israel has publicly warned that it would take military action to prevent the Syrian regime's chemical weapons falling into the hands of Hezbollah in Lebanon or, quote, global jihadists fighting inside Syria. But in reality, these global jihadists are in fact armed and funded by the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Israel since at least as early as 2007. And the fears of these terrorists acquiring chemical weapons is absurd. They've already acquired them with U.S., NATO, British, Saudi, Qatari, and even Israeli help in Libya in 2011. And in fact, these are the very same Libyan terrorists that are spearheading the foreign militant groups that are flooding into Syria through the Turkish-Syrian border. So we have to be on the lookout now for false flag attacks, because reports have already come out before warning that the rebels had the chemical weapons and they were going to detonate those and blame it on Assad as a pretext to invade the country. What's worse is a Russian MiG has buzzed Israel following the attack on Syria. Moscow has said that such action, if confirmed, of the Israel attack would amount to an unacceptable military interference in the war-ravaged country, which was issued by the Russian Foreign Ministry, and Lebanon sources have later reported that a Russian MiG-31 fighter crossed over Wednesday, headed in the direction of Israel. Russia obviously isn't taking Israel's actions lightly, and China has gone on record before to say that if something happens to Syria, Russia's going to get involved. China's also going to get involved. This is the verge of World War III. This is what we're talking about right now. They're playing with fire here. And Infowars will definitely keep you up to date on all the latest information at Infowars.com as this situation unfolds. So we're going to switch gears now. A fish actually caught near the Fukushima plant shows more than 2,500 times the legal radiation limit for human consumption. A fish was caught as part of an ongoing Tokyo Electric Power Company seafood monitoring program tested at 254,000 becquerels per kilogram of radioactive cesium. And this level of radiation is enough to suggest that the plant is more than likely still releasing extremely high levels of nuclear radiation directly into the ocean. And we at Infowars, we have reported that this was going to happen. The mainstream media is not reporting on this, even though stories like this come out every single day, and they're going to continue to come out, and you never hear about them. But you will continue to hear about them here at Infowars. Now moving on, over 1,000 Green Berets have now signed a letter supporting our Second Amendment. The letter was written by current or former Army Reserve, National Guard, and active duty U.S. Army Special Forces soldiers, and highlights the fact that the Constitution was drafted primarily as a means of protecting citizens against governmental tyranny and or oppression. And I love this quote, so I'm going to read it. Throughout history, disarming the populace was always preceded by tyrants' accession of power. Hitler, Stalin, and Mao all disarmed their citizens prior to installing their murderous regimes. And at the beginning of our own nation's revolution, one of the first moves made by the British government was an attempt to disarm our citizens. And when our founding fathers ensured that the Second Amendment was made part of our Constitution, they were not just wasting ink. They were acting to ensure our present security was never forcibly endangered by tyrants, foreign or domestic. But as you've seen, the attack on our Second Amendment continues in the mainstream media. We're actually going to continue to take a look at this now with a special report filed by Aaron Dykes.
Aaron Dykes here for Infowars.com. Now, we've seen already how the gun grabbers will stop at almost nothing to advance their agenda as long as they get to rein in the Second Amendment right, because the fact that individuals have rights is very threatening to any authoritarian government, whatever its stripes, political stances, or colors. But the latest hoax we saw on MSNBC is just incredible. They went out of their way to distort gun owners and advocates of the Second Amendment right who were in testimony Monday with the parents of the Sandy Hook victims, and MSNBC deliberately edited testimony of Neil Heslin, the father of Jesse Lewis, as he advocated restricting assault rifles, banning high-capacity clips, which is fine. You can understand his grief, why he would speak out on that, even though I think it's a misguided position. I certainly sympathize with the families who lost children, with anyone who's lost children or family members in a tragedy, but what's not okay is the way that Martin Bashir, Lawrence O'Donnell, and other figures on MSNBC, on blogs across the internet, went with the hoax on purpose, where Neil Heslin, in the middle of his testimony, asked the rhetorical question, who of you in this room can answer this question? Why does anyone in this room need to have an assault rifle or a high-capacity clip? And he waits a few seconds, there's silence, and he says, no one can answer that question in this room. And so a number of gun rights advocates who were there at the hearing spoke up, saying that you shall not infringe on the Second Amendment.
I ask if there's anybody in this room that can give me one reason or challenge this question, why anybody in this room needs to have one of these assault-style weapons or military weapons or high-capacity clips. And not one person can answer that question or give me any.
No, Section 8 shall not be infringed.
All right.
And what they did was edited this part of the testimony, edited out the part where the father asked the question, and just made it look like people were interrupting this father's testimony who had just had children die in Sandy Hook, and obviously it's a very sympathetic moment.
We're all entitled to our own opinion, and I respect their opinions and their thoughts, but I wish they'd respect mine and give it a little bit of thought.
A father's grief interrupted by the cries of a heckler. That was the scene today in Hartford, Connecticut, where the parents of children killed at Sandy Hook Elementary testified before an audience that wasn't always friendly.
Deliberately distorted it, just like they deliberately edited the audio of the Trayvon Martin shooting to make it seem like it was racially motivated, when in fact it turned out that Zimmerman had often worked with the black community. He himself was a mixed race, and really race shouldn't have been the main issue of that. Certainly it's legitimate to question if his death was justified. We get that MSNBC is state-run propaganda for the Obama administration, just as Fox News was blatantly state propaganda during the George W. Bush years, and the next time they roll out a president, maybe they'll switch networks again, or maybe MSNBC will continue on its current track. I get it. What do you expect from a pig but a grunt? But what I don't understand is why they always paint anyone who asks questions, anyone who stands up for rights, anyone who says that we're being delivered hoaxes in the media to push an agenda, why those people are blamed, and why they always say, how dare you ask those questions or defend those rights because of the families who have victims from this tragedy. Why don't any of the parents from these tragedies, whether it's 9/11 or Sandy Hook or any the Colorado shooting, anything, why don't they get mad at the establishment using their tragedy to advance the establishment's agenda? It's very clear. We know that Feinstein was pursuing the assault weapons ban before the Sandy Hook shooting. It's very clear that Rahm Emanuel said their policy, that the Obama administration's policy, is to use crises. Don't let a good crisis go to waste.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
We know that the Patriot Act was written beforehand and on the books, and the Bush administration was looking for the excuse to get it put into law. We know that the Project for a New American Century wanted a Pearl Harbor-style attack to advance an American empire agenda, a multi-theater war overseas. We know they have agendas. They announced them. They've been uncovered, found by researchers, but they always say, how dare the researchers question, how dare you question those in in power who admittedly are just seeking more power and will use any tragedy to find it. Why don't the parents get mad at the establishment for using their tragedy? That I don't understand. And why do we put up with MSNBC deliberately advancing hoaxes? It's sickening. Aaron Dykes signing off for Infowars.com.
So as you can see there, the mainstream media deliberately edited that to make it look bad for gun owners, to make them look bad, to continue this further demonization. And if that's not enough, the mainstream media just continues the attack on Second Amendment and on gun owners, as you will see here.
Those, crazy crackers on the right, like if they start with their very hateful language, just disgusted with the tone. So these guys have to be very, very careful. I think that's the other thing that these guys know is that those, crazy crackers on the right, like if they start with their very hateful language, that is going to kill them in the same way that they learned at their little retreat that let's not talk about rape.
So as you can see there, we're considered crazy crackers, but we also are doing the hate speech. But as we're about to show you here, it's not us that's involved in the hate speech, it's the mainstream media. Let's take a look at this.
In America's gun culture, I believe the NRA is the new KKK. Wow. And that the arming of so many black youth and loading up our communities with drugs and then just having an open shooting gallery is the work of people that, obviously don't have our best interest. And I
pause. I've listened to the full interview. You can go listen to it for yourself. This is incredible. And you're racist if you want the Second Amendment, and it's our fault there's a gangster culture in rap and pit bulls, and Michael Vick, I guess, did that with those dogs. It's our fault, ladies and gentlemen.
But check it out. Gun owners aren't just the KKK. Apparently, we're also Nazis.
Surely finding Osama bin Laden, surely passing civil rights legislation as Lyndon Johnson was able to do, and before that, surely defeating the Nazis was a much more formidable task than taking on the gun lobby. This is a turning point in this country, and the president is going to have to do more than just make a speech about it.
So there you go. We're KKK members, we're Nazis, we're crazy crackers. They're pulling out all the stops, and just when you think it couldn't get any more ridiculous, check this one out.
The Supreme Court ruling in Heller, which struck down the District of Columbia's ban on handguns, laid out a good framework. It said an individual right to bear arms does exist, but it comes with limitations like every amendment. Those on the pro-gun side must recognize no amendment is absolute. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech. It's hallowed. But you still can't falsely shout fire in a crowded theater or traffic in child pornography. Those are reasonable limits on the First Amendment. But for the last several years, my particular focus in the area of gun safety has been on responsible gun ownership and background checks.
Which neither of those two things would have had anything to do with preventing Sandy Hook, as the person who supposedly perpetrated those crimes didn't get those guns illegally, didn't have a background check, and was going into a gun-free zone with guns and murdering people. So none of the stuff that guy just said made any sense at all. But where is this headed? Well, an NPR article that came out says that should gun owners have to buy liability insurance? Apparently they're saying you have to buy car insurance, so you should also have to buy gun insurance. And they aren't the only ones actually saying that. If you'll recall, I actually wrote an article back in the beginning of January when Kurt Eichenwald, the contributing editor at Vanity Fair, wrote an article titled, "Let's Repeal the Second Amendment." And one of the things that he talks about in there is that this amendment has nothing to do with modern America. A free state doesn't mean a free country. The phrase people doesn't mean all people. And basically, we need to have a new amendment, and gun owners should be forced to purchase insurance. He says the new amendment should read, "The people retain the right to keep and bear arms subject to reasonable restrictions deemed necessary by the Congress and the President to secure the lives and well-being of others." Really. And that the restriction he really wants to impose, and this is a quote, but here's the restriction I really want to impose, "Force all gun owners to purchase liability insurance." So basically, they're talking about an Obamacare now for gun owners, and it's just unbelievable. And now we go to the quote of the day. "Happy the man who has been able to learn the causes of things," Virgil. I think that's meant to be taken tongue-in-cheek. And that's going to do it for tonight's Infowars Nightly News. I've been your host, Melissa Melton. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central.
Freedom lovers, Alex Jones here
with the biggest contest announcement we've ever made. This is so incredibly exciting. We are launching Operation Paul Revere. What did Paul Revere do? He rode through the countryside in New England saying, to arms, the redcoats are coming. Oneth by land, twoeth by sea. And all that evil men and tyrants need to flourish is that good men and women do nothing. Let me officially announce Operation Paul Revere, a $100,000 cash first place winner to be judged by yours truly, Alex Jones. The film can be 3 minutes. It can be up to 2 hours. It can be fiction, nonfiction, documentary, drama. It's got to promote liberty and freedom and expose tyranny and oppression. And it's not just people in the U.S. that can enter. It's folks worldwide. The rules, the details are at Infowars.com/contest. You have to read the rules and officially sign up for this because it's a $100,000 prize, first place, $10,000 second place, $5,000 third place. But just as I did last year with the reporter contest, we are going to crowdsource from the pool of incredible talent out there and hire several official crews to be directors and writers and camera people in Infowars.com produced major films and documentaries that will be put in movie theaters and on cable. And I've got all the connections to get it done. Together, we're going to really give the New World Order hell. This is extremely exciting. I've made over 20 films. One of them alone has reached more than 40 million people on YouTube and Google Video. The Obama Deception, Endgame, Fall of the Republic, Road to Tyranny. Films are the most effective thing I do, but they're very time-consuming. And so I want to turn the power of we the people loose here. And your art, your research, your ideas are unstoppable. We're officially kicking the contest off this Friday. And you've got a little more than 3 months until April 30th. Just a little more than 3 months to produce your documentary or your film and get it out. And it will absolutely reach tens of millions of people. Our normal contest get about 500 entries. That's what $10,000 prize is. This is 10 times that. $100,000 for first place. That's one of the biggest contests out there. In fact, it's the biggest next to Doritos that has $100,000. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. $115,000 in cash prizes and a shot to have your film produced and financed by Infowars.com. Edit it, upload it to YouTube and one other alternate public video site, and send your entry to Paul Revere at Infowars.com. The animating contest of liberty that Thomas Jefferson talked about is happening right now. The modern battlefield is in the mind more than ever. We use truth. The globalists use lies and deception. The corruption and oppression and high-tech police state is in our face. But the controllers are scared. They intended to use the internet to dominate and control humanity and surveil us. But we've turned their system against them. This is a historic crossroads that we have reached. And I ask you to ride in the year 2013, just as one of the founders of this republic did back in 1775. I'm calling you to arms in the InfoWar because the pen and the video camera is mightier than the sword. Let's go in there and rescue humanity and awaken them and set brush fires in the minds of men and women everywhere. Be part of this contest. You've got 3 months. Put your hat in the ring. Be part of the solution to the corruption and oppression. Be part of the resistance to tyranny. We're looking for the Paul Reveres that will drive a stake through the New World Order's wicked heart. ProPure is introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. This is the Pro One by ProPure. You wanted it, you got it. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. It cuts out the acid derivative of fluoride. It is the only one that does it, and out of the gates, we have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. This is a revolution against the tyrants. They love putting the toxic acid base of fluoride into your water. They love the fact that it's an adjuvant supercharging the trace Prozac in the water and the hormones and the other chemicals. By cutting out fluoride, you cut out the turbocharger in all the poison being artificially introduced into your body. This is what I use. It's a win-win. You get a high-quality product at the lowest price. You support the Infowar. Get your Pro Pure with the new Pro 1 filters today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. Alex Jones here with a message that could revolutionize health in this country. Going back about 1.5 years ago, I began to learn about the incredible health effects of longevity products. Aaron Dykes lost 92 pounds. We're going to show you some before and afters. Aaron, break down what happened, your story.
I've worked really hard with diet and exercise to try to lose weight, but I just didn't get the results. It just didn't happen. Then I saw what you were doing with InfoWarsTeam.com. I wasn't even trying to lose weight, but I got it because I wanted to feel better energy. I wanted that nutrition. Didn't even understand how that could kickstart my own weight loss goals, but the products did that for me. I found myself suddenly losing weight, more energetic, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat the right foods.
And they don't even advertise it as weight loss. I want to challenge our radio listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com. Sign up as a distributor and get wholesale pricing discounts at InfoWarsTeam.com.
These are aerial pictures here in Harris County, Texas. As we have been watching the better part of this last hour, North Harris campus is on lockdown. This is an active situation. We are not showing you live pictures because of what we may possibly see.
The corporate state-run media calls anybody that questions the official propaganda that's pumped out by the government and the dinosaur media as conspiracy theorist. And that's just a way to demonize your opposition and to try to get weak-minded people to not investigate the information that the alternative media is putting out. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that everything the government or mainstream media puts out is a lie. I've gotten a lot of criticism for not coming out and saying that Sandy Hook is an inside job. It has some of the telltale signs of being an inside job, but those are the same signs you will see if the government is simply using the crisis, like Rahm Emanuel has famously said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. Here's a clip of that.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
Now, again, in the last month and a half, I have not come out and said that this was clearly a staged event. Unfortunately, evidence is beginning to come out that points more and more in that direction, and we're going to show you that information in a moment. Now, a lot of the tens of millions of video views on YouTube concerning the Sandy Hook hoax surround CNN and what appears to be people who've been coached, people who've been given cue cards, people who are behaving like actors. And we see CNN criticizing all the witnesses from the helicopter and the news crews and witnesses, adults that saw multiple people being detained who were in camo. We're told, oh, those are 5-year-olds saying that. It's a conspiracy theory. When it's not 5-year-olds saying that, it's adults. It's police admitting that, quote, police officers were arrested from other jurisdictions, creeping around the woods. Something serious is going on here. And CNN, over and over again, is at the heart of the fishy things that are happening. Now, remember, in 1990, 1991, when the Gulf War started, CNN would send out their raw feeds to their news affiliates, and on it there was clear blue screens on top the roof of CNN Center in Atlanta with their top reporters claiming they were in Israel under sarin nerve gas attack from Scuds. And later they had to admit quietly, but this is on record, we're going to show you some clips, that indeed they were in Atlanta, Georgia, and that they were not being attacked by Scud missiles with sarin gas. CBS News got caught scripting videos as well. And there's a lot of examples of this. So let's go ahead and look at those clips.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
I'm starting to get real bothered by all this.
You ready?
Boy, did I almost look stupid. Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia.
And that there are also firings in another city in Saudi Arabia. CNN's Carl Rochelle is here with me. He just came up. Carl, I know we can't be very specific given these restrictions, but within those parameters, what did you see?
Well, what I saw, I didn't see anything hit. I looked almost straight above us. There is a vapor trail coming from my right to my left, and there's a cloud of something. It looks like it might have been an explosion, a cloud. I'd say my apologies for that. He's putting on a gas mask. There hasn't been any gas dropped here that we could tell. You smell anything? No. You may smell some of the fumes from a missile exhaust going off. The missiles use a rocket, a cordite, some sort of burning. We just heard a little thump just then. But
I have to apologize for that. I caught a whiff of something and felt momentarily dizzy. You're more experienced.
Now remember, that's only a small portion of hours of raw CNN feed that back in the old days they didn't scramble the big satellite feeds because they thought most people wouldn't have a 12-foot dish to get it. But people did record that, and that's how they got caught with their pants down. And notice that blue screen in the background so they could project the Tel Aviv and Jerusalem skylines in the background. Coming up, we've got Anderson Cooper, supposedly at Sandy Hook, and it's clearly blue screen. I've worked with blue screen for 17 years. We've got it right in there. We know what it looks like. We know what the anomalies look like. And we know what happens when you don't tune it properly. It's clearly blue screen. And you can draw from that what you want. That's coming up in a moment. So CNN's done it before. I have mainstream news articles here out of the Washington Post, out of WorldNet Daily, where CNN had to admit that they had Army psychological warfare inside of their system, basically crafting the news. And then, of course, we have things like Operation Northwoods, where in 1961 the Joint Chiefs came to Kennedy with Lemnitzer's plan and said, we want to stage shootings around America in crowded public places like movie theaters and things, and on the street to blame the Soviets as a pretext for war with Cuba. And Kennedy said no. They've had the plan for mass shootings before, so we can't be attacked and others can't be attacked for questioning known liars who put on fake news and questioning a government that's been caught wanting to stage shootings. And they didn't just plan to stage shootings. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, this was declassified by the Italian government and their president and the head of their CIA a few years ago, that the U.S. government used terrorists to stage terror attacks, and NATO did this as well to blame their political opposition, be they left or right, similar to what we saw with Oklahoma City. And part of that program was called the NATO option or Operation Gladio. So look that up for yourself. I've also interviewed police officers that were involved in the rescue at Oklahoma City, like Mr. Browning, who's in the award-winning film A Noble Lie, who were threatened by the FBI if they talked about what they knew with death.
But was told more than once or twice by agents in the area that people like my wife and I would have ended up dead by not going along with what we knew to be true.
Wow, so you're a decorated Vietnam veteran, police officer, one of the heroes that responded when there could have been other bombs and was thought there were other bombs, and the FBI agents in the police office are telling you do what you're told or you and your wife are dead. And you're saying this on record here, sir.
Yes, sir.
What did they know about? Federal agents inside planning the bombs in Oklahoma City. And it was Attorney General Holder, who later ran the false flag of Fast and Furious, who was Deputy Attorney General back in 1995, who ran the cover-up. And those emails have come out in different lawsuits that are available online if you'd like to look those up. Go out and check everything I'm telling you. And you're going to find out it's even worse than I'm saying. In fact, that's what I get criticized for is, not covering at all this piece of evidence, that piece of evidence. There's too many. I clearly believe from the evidence children were really killed in Sandy Hook, and it's a real tragedy. But the fact that they're having people script things and that answers are being scripted is incontrovertible. We're going to get to some of that evidence right now.
It's believed at this hour, and it's been confirmed to ABC News by state police there in Connecticut, that 2 shooters were initially believed involved in the mass shooting. One of those shooters now dead. What's not been confirmed is whether or not that gunman took his own life or whether or not there was something that ensued after authorities began arriving at the scene.
Now, I'm just going to hit a few of the big unanswered questions of Sandy Hook. Just a few. The mainstream media keeps saying conspiracy theorists say there were multiple shooters. Nobody said that but a few poor 5-year-olds who were traumatized. So we go and look, and there's countless adult witnesses. There's helicopter footage. There's police reports. There's video. There's local news accounts saying, oh, it was a tactical officer from a nearby jurisdiction who happened to be hanging out in the woods and wearing the same thing as what people said the shooters were wearing. No big deal, though. Let's just go ahead and ignore that. And that's in the Newtown Bee and other publications. And then, again, we have the newscast saying other shooters and showing people being grabbed in the woods. But we're told we never saw that. Here's a clip.
They did walk a guy out of the woods. I saw him walk a guy out earlier with handcuffs. He walked by us and said he didn't do it.
It was a grown man.
A grown man, yeah. He's sitting in the front of the police car over there now. So, I mean...
He didn't have a gun?
No, I didn't see any gun. Just had him handcuffed. And he walked by us and looked into parents' eyes and said, I didn't do it.
How was he dressed?
Camo pants with a dark jacket.
Roger. I have reports that the teacher saw 2 shadows running past the building, past the gym, which would be rear... base. They're shooting. Yeah, we got them. They're coming at me down Coast Point. Come up the driveway left side. That's 6. This is it.
One of the big issues out there that has people asking questions is Robbie Parker, who reportedly lost one of his daughters. And people see the photos out there where it looks like Obama's meeting with all 3 of his children and things like that. And when you watch the footage, I know grieving parents do strange things, but it looks like he's saying, okay, do I read off the card? He's laughing, and then he goes over and starts basically breaking down and crying. So let's show that clip.
Family is there, and they're getting ready to come to the microphone, so we'll listen in. Okay. My name's Robbie Parker. My family is one of the families that lost a child yesterday in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shootings here in Connecticut.
I haven't touched this, okay? All I know is they're seizing on it. They staged Fast and Furious. The head of Gun Owners of America has said on my own show, Larry Pratt, that if they'd staged Fast and Furious that killed thousands, our government, to blame the Second Amendment, they'd stage anything. What is your take right now on this situation? What do you, I mean, obviously they're seizing on it politically. Obama's saying you shouldn't have semi-auto. We're seeing Michael Moore, all the usual suspects. Sure. Bloomberg's telling police to go on strike. We're going to cover all those points. But what does your gut tell you?
Now, we have to admit that maybe this is something that our government is capable of, because this is only 12 people murdered. They were good for 400 in Fast and Furious.
All I know is overall gun crimes going down, so I'm just defending the Second Amendment. But people are pointing this out. I didn't cover it until last week. They had the Lone Star College gang-related shooting where 3 people were shot, thank God not killed. And CNN kept saying, we're not going to show you live feeds because of what you might see. We're going to show that in a moment. And I was watching the local KHOU and getting to see what people were actually saying. And so that's a big deal in news when they start deciding not to show you helicopter footage because of what you might see.
Another school shooting. These are aerial pictures here in Harris County, Texas, as we have been watching the better part of this last hour. North Harris campus is on lockdown. This is an active situation. We are not showing you live pictures because of what we may possibly see. As a result, we are showing you delayed tape pictures as police, SWAT, FBI now.
This is the same CNN that staged Scud attacks that their people were supposedly under with a blue screen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the finale. I saw this footage where Anderson Cooper turns. He's supposedly there at Sandy Hook in front of the memorial, and his whole forehead and nose blurs out. I've been working with blue screen, again, for 17 years. I know what it looks like. It's clearly blue screen. Clearly. And I thought, that's got to be somebody's doctored YouTube. There's no way. We went to CNN, found a link where the whole interview had been posted. It's been removed. Oh, by the way, just like some of the earlier clips, like Robbie Parker, have been removed. I forgot that. So I'm thinking, okay, they took it down. Let me go to archive.org, which is a respected group that puts the archives up, and I found it all unedited right there, exact same footage in high def. And we're going to show you a clip of that right now, full size, and then we'll enhance it and blow it up. All right, folks. Again, when we see these anomalous clips, we actually do our best to go to the source. And the best we can tell, they did post the entire interview after they did it on CNN.com, but it's been removed. But we went to Internet Archive, highly respected archive.org. This is not some, quote, conspiracy site. This is archive.org. They've got an unedited entire interview in 10-minute chunks. That's how they do it. So here it is at the very beginning of this chunk where his nose disappears, and we have blue screen here. It's clearly blue screen.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Is there anything else you want to say?
And Anderson Cooper has got some explaining to do, because I know blue screen when I see it. I believe children died at Sandy Hook. And there are a lot of parents going through serious grief, so that can account for some of the strange behavior. Nothing can account for what happens to his nose. And this is CNN, admittedly run by the Pentagon and PSYOPs, Washington Post, WorldNet Daily. This needs to be investigated. They're clearly using this to go after our guns. The government knows overall violent crime's down 49% in the last 20 years. They know more guns means less crime. So they're clearly being opportunistic. That's undoubted. Something, though, is really starting to get suspicious here. I mean, I'm sick of it always being a conspiracy. We know it's a conspiracy that they're putting people on Prozac and stuff that makes them go out and do this. We know that's the real cause of some of these real shootings. It's at the root. But the fact that this whole thing could be staged, it's just mind-blowing. Tell us what you think. Great job to all the people out there, the crowdsourcing that are researching all these clips. No wonder CNN won't put out a live feed anymore. I mean, they are panicked because they know you're watching and I'm watching. Just like Kurt Haskell, lawyer with his wife, with the underwear bomber a few Christmases ago. He saw the government getting him on the plane. He was the only guy to tell that story for a month and a half. And then on C-SPAN, the Undersecretary of State Kennedy admitted that they'd been ordered by an unnamed U.S. agency to help that patsy get on the plane.
There have been numerous cases where our unilateral and uncoordinated revocation of a visa would have disrupted important investigations that were underway by one of our national security partners. They had the individual under investigation, and our revocation action would have disclosed U.S. government's interest in that individual and ended our colleagues' ability, such as the FBI, to pursue the case quietly and to identify terrorist plans and co-conspirators.
The system's scared because they know I'm watching and you're watching. So you can't blame anybody for not believing known certified liars in the government and at CNN. It's that simple. Sorry, we don't trust you anymore. If you told us the sun came up in the morning, people would go out and check before they believed you. Alex Jones signing off for Infowars.com.
Boy, did I almost look stupid.
Charles Jaco, CNN, reporting live from Saudi Arabia.
And that's going to do it for tonight's InfoWars Nightly News. I've been your host, Melissa Melton. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central.